said she's about to get on. Hold tight, please.
There she is.
Okay, great.
I just invited her.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. No, it's fine. No, it's Hi guys. Okay, I'm just waiting for Jessica to join and then we will get started. Let's see. Invite. She says she's unable to join. All right, well, hang tight, everyone. I just said I invited her and she just said she's not able to join. All right, we're just waiting for Jessica to join and then we will get started. Let me see if I can add her again. I'll invite. Let's see if that worked. Oh, there we go. Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Sorry about that. I kept inviting you and it wasn't working, so I apologize.
That's okay. No worries. We worked it out.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm so excited to chat with you. Let me just move my, sorry, I'm just getting myself all set up as well so you can actually see me. Anyways, well, let's get started. So I am going to introduce myself and then I'm going to have you introduce yourself and answer a bunch of questions for us. But just so everybody knows what's going on, so we are going to chat with Jessica today, and she is a dietitian. She's going to talk to us about picky eating. I know so many parents feel the pain of having a picky eater. I personally have one myself, so I'm excited to get a bunch of tips and tricks from you. And I know this is just a topic that every parent can relate to. So let's get started. Can you also, oh, the other thing I wanted to say is that to start, that anybody who would like to work with Jessica, you can actually find her on Tot Squad. She is a Tot Squad provider, and so if you are interested in working with a dietitian for your children or yourself, you can find her on there as well. So, and Tot Squad has trustworthy and vetted providers for all different topics for parents, so make sure you check them out as well. So Jessica, can you just introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself and your job and what you do and how you got into your line of business?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. This is exciting to join you today. So I am a registered dietitian. I've been a dietitian for over 15 years now. And one of the areas that I practice in and I love is maternal and child nutrition. And so that's really been a passion of mine throughout my entire career. I've worked in kind of community nutrition and nutrition education for a long time, but I'm currently a nutrition professor at Syracuse University, which is here in upstate New York. And I have dealt with this issue myself personally. I have 3 kids, 9, 4, and 7 months. And so I've gone through the spectrum of trying to feed my kids and deal with picky eating. And so I feel like I have blended and updated what I recommend to people as a result of my own personal experiences.
That's amazing. Wow. I'm so, you get to redo the whole baby phase of feeding here coming soon. I'm sure that was like the hard thing for me, is when I first had my son, I felt like trying to get him to eat and introduce new foods. And I was so worried as a new parent. It's so stressful. So can can you tell us a little bit about like the psychology behind picky eating and just like why you think kids become picky eaters? Like why are some kids such good eaters and then other kids like are terrible at it?
Yeah, I think in some ways it might be genetic, right? That some of us are just destined to maybe be a little bit pickier.
Yeah.
But it's also a combination of it's partly developmental that as kids are learning to eat, sometimes they just get stuck in these ruts and they really like one thing and they just want that, and that's okay. And so sometimes it's that piece that it's developmental. And I think sometimes it's also just a matter of like continuing to expose them and getting them comfortable with the idea of trying new foods. I know sometimes that's like overwhelming and scary, and there may be, preferences as far as taste and texture go that it's hard for us to appreciate as adults, but for them, like everything is sort of new territory. So I think those are some of the reasons behind it. I know there's also, going back to the genetics, there's also like a taste factor where some of us are really like sensitive tasters and we can taste and pick out like every flavor that's in a food item, good, bad, or otherwise. And some of us are just like more, I don't want to say bland, but some of us just don't have that like genetic talent. And so we may eat something and go, well, that tasted pretty good. Whereas other people may eat the same thing and they'd be like, oh my gosh, that was so salty. So that's another piece of it that I think sometimes we can't always appreciate if we're not that same type of taster.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Because my son, he will eat anything. He'll try anything. He's like, like you could put anything in front of him and he's like, awesome. And he'll just eat it up. And my daughter will not touch anything. We're in that phase of like, I only want mac and cheese and chicken nuggets. And, as a parent, I think a lot of parents just get to that stress mark where I'm like, you're not eating any vegetables. You'll eat some fruit. And it's just, you become like, are they going to be like this forever? Like,
right.
Oh my gosh, like they need to be getting these nutrients and like you can't eat chicken nuggets for the rest of your life.
Exactly. I think there's a couple schools of thought around this. Like, on one hand, I've seen a lot of recipes out there where you can kind of sneak in vegetables. So if you're making chicken nuggets, you can like sneak in some vegetables into the breading that you might use if you're making them from scratch. And I think to some extent that helps us alleviate the anxiety of like, they're not getting any vegetables. But on the other hand, in most cases, they're going to be just fine, even if in that one phase of their life, they're not eating like a fully balanced meal. But I think it's still worthwhile to continue to offer them those other foods. Even if they're probably only going to eat that one thing, continuing to put it on their plate and offer it to them is part of the learning process. Like they have to see it and see it and see it and see other people eat it. And that's all part of what they're observing and figuring out before they may get to the point where they try it themselves.
Okay. That's really good to know because I think I've kind of gotten to the point where sometimes I give up. Like, I'm not going to put green beans on your plate or broccoli on your plate anymore because you're not going to eat it. And then I get frustrated because I want her to eat them. And then that plays a role where she's like, this is fun. Mom's frustrated that I'm not eating. So I'm going to, just toddler style, like really stubborn.
Yeah.
So that's really
it's hard because they have their own little like stubborn energy as well at that age.
Yeah.
So, there's also maybe this idea around like trying to make something into kind of a challenge or a taste test, like get them to take a bite and then they have to like rate it or give you like a thumbs up or thumbs down, or like it's almost making it a game where like the trick is that you get them to eat it and then they give you feedback. And so depending on like, how old and how willing they are to engage it that way, I think that can be fun.
Yeah.
And then you can also sometimes bring in a variety of foods and just have them taste a bunch of different things to see what they like or don't like. Because you may realize, oh my gosh, I've never given her kiwi before, but she actually likes it.
Yeah. Okay. That's really great to know. To put food continue putting it on their plate, even if they turn their nose up at it or they turn it down, keep trying time after time, and then they'll see you eating it or another sibling eating it or a grandparent, and then that will spur them hopefully to start. Because I definitely have given up where I'm like, I'm not cooking that for her anymore, but I feel like I need to rethink that. And also making a game out of it. That's also a great idea because we definitely never did that. So I will try that. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, so how can parents approach picky eating for different stages? So I think typically like babies, obviously what do you do like with like an infant when you first start feeding them? If you're like, oh wow, I feel like I have a really picky eater, like they don't like anything. And then moving into the toddlers, can you just touch on like two different age ranges of like how to address picky eating from the baby phase, and then also once you get into that like toddler phase where they can actually say no to you?
Right. So, for younger ages, my philosophy is that food before one is just for fun, right? So it's all about offering and letting them explore. And sometimes their reasoning for wanting it or not wanting it probably has nothing to do with the taste. And it's more about their ability to eat it or the texture and the mouthfeel. So I would say, I wouldn't worry about labeling a young child like under the age of 1 as a picky eater. Okay. Because they're still figuring things out. Like the key there is to just keep offering them things. And again, let them kind of explore and make a mess. And if they're not eating it, that's okay. That doesn't necessarily mean that they won't like it later on. Mm-hmm. When you get to the toddler ages, I think a great way to try to help overcome maybe some of those food ruts or the pickiness is to get them involved in making something, because they have a natural curiosity. So if they're helping you make something, that is an easier sell for them to then try it when it's ready, because they're going to want to know what it tastes like if they helped make it.
Okay. That's really helpful. I know that my kids love cutting things. So like, I feel like they really love bell peppers and like cucumbers because they get to help cut them. And so then it's a much easier thing. So that's a great idea to have them.
Yeah. And there's a lot of little things they can help with, even if it's just stirring or measuring something out or peeling, they can do little things. And to them, that's like a huge task that they've helped you with.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll have my daughter help me cook some broccoli and that will convince her to eat broccoli, because she's not big on the vegetables. So that's really, really helpful.
But you can, one thing that is going back to that challenge idea, you could do like a taste the rainbow challenge and like have all these different colors of fruits and vegetables, and maybe have a chart where she kind of like ranks or scores which one she likes or doesn't like.
Oh, okay. I love that idea. Okay, so you can do like the rainbow and basically just pick a vegetable or like a fruit. The other thing, I don't know, do you ever recommend smoothies as a way to get kids eating? Because that's been one thing that has made me feel a little better as a parent is my daughter loves smoothies, both my kids do, and it feel like I can put all sorts of things in there and like hide it, and it feels like they're getting like nutrients. And is that something you ever recommend?
Absolutely. I think smoothies are fun also, because sometimes it feels like a treat, but it's still packed with a lot of healthy things. And it also goes back to the idea of like potentially sneaking in things. You could definitely add some fruits or vegetables that she probably wouldn't eat into a smoothie, and it might completely get masked by the other stuff that you're putting in there. I mean, bananas are really strong flavors. So if they like bananas, you can put bananas in a smoothie and then add in like spinach or something else, and it tastes like banana. Okay. So yeah, that's a great option. I would say there's lots of ways you can like make smoothies, whether it's with yogurt or with milk, putting in like frozen fruit or even some vegetables, adding in stuff like peanut butter to give some protein. So I think that's a fun treat, and it's fine. That's as long as it's not like replacing a meal necessarily. Like at that age, you wouldn't want it to be a meal replacement, but it's still a nice accompaniment either as a snack or as a beverage during a meal.
Okay. And so like when you think about picky eating, I love that you said, food before one is just fun, and that parents don't need to like be so concerned about getting in their, fruits and vegetables before one. And then after that, at what point should a parent be concerned? Like at what point does a parent come to you and say, I want to hire Jessica because we're really struggling? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, I think about it from kind of like the broad perspective of like, are they getting their needs met? And we know for kids that things containing a lot of iron and protein are two of the main like nutrients that we're concerned about, along with calcium and things that support bone growth. Okay. So depending on the level of pickiness, for us, we want them to eat like a full balanced meal. But the reality is, even if they're eating a few things on their plate, if they're still getting enough nutrients, they're probably going to be okay. So for me, I would kind of take an assessment of like what they're eating or not eating and figure out if that is meeting their needs for things like protein, iron, and calcium. and then figure out how to address that. But, in a lot of cases, the pickiness is just a part of their development, and they'll most likely grow out of it.
Okay.
But if not, then you would think about strategies to help like sneak things in or add other foods into their diet that they will eat, to make sure that they're meeting all their nutritional needs.
Okay, that's great to know. Another thing I noticed is that once my son has gone to kindergarten and he sees what his friends eat, and like they serve salad at school, things like, and he's like, I ate salad today. I'm like, really? Wow. Okay. So I do think that peer-to-peer can also be helpful. That has helped me feel a little bit better at it. Like he's getting introduced to things also at school, so it doesn't always have to be at home where I'm like trying to convince them to eat, try new things.
Exactly.
So
in some ways that's a double-edged sword, because you have no control over what the other kids are eating. If it's from school, then but if they're bringing stuff from home, it could be good or not so good. But I agree. I think once they start to get exposed to what other people are eating, it might even give you some ideas for what you could serve at home. I know my kids came home from daycare and they were like, oh yeah, we had turkey goulash at lunch and loved it. And I'm like, I would have never thought to make that for you. So now I got to figure out how to make turkey goulash.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, that is a good idea. My son also did tell me he just decided that he now loves Doritos because they had like Doritos at school, and I was like, okay, well, yes, I guess we'll have to revisit that another time. But yeah, they are. I mean, it's a double-edged sword.
It's a good thing to talk about and just kind of frame things, because like you don't want to frame things as good foods and bad foods with kids, because that starts to establish this like unhealthy relationship with foods.
Okay.
But thinking about like the idea of balance. And so, like if they can comprehend numbers, I like to talk to my older son about like this 80-20 rule, that like 80% of the food you eat should be pretty healthy. And then the 20% of the rest of the time, it's okay if you make fun choices that are not always so healthy.
Okay. Oh, that's really good to know. And you're right. I do think, because I definitely get into that where I'm like, Dorito, like that kind of stuff isn't good for you and this and that. But then I think it makes kids want it even more, is what I've
Right. It's like, then it becomes a forbidden food.
Right, because I'm like, he says he has salad, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I'm so excited. And then he's talking about it, and I'm like, well, that's not such a great, but it's true. And, there is obviously a balance. You have to like have fun food sometimes. So that's
exactly.
So I have two last questions for you. One is, can you talk about portion size? So that was something as a parent I did not really totally understand, where I feel like, what's appropriate portion size for age? Like, what is the expectation? Because I definitely think sometimes parents put food on their plate like it's for them, like the size that they would eat, and then they're feeling like you didn't eat enough. And so can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, that's so important, because I think you're right. We come at it with like, here's how much we think they should eat. And then we get disappointed or frustrated if they don't eat that amount.
Right.
I would say, I don't like getting hung up on like using measuring cups and spoons to like portion things out. I think your hand is a really good reference tool. And so especially when it comes to like grains, pastas and rices, like the amount that is your fist is kind of an appropriate amount to have at one time. So when you think about kids, like when you look at their hands, like that helps you adjust the portion sizes accordingly. And when it comes to something that's maybe more of a protein, like a piece of chicken, then think about like the size of your hand when it's open. Like that would be an appropriate portion for a protein food. So I like to take that kind of visual approach, because then they also can like do that assessment themselves to look at how much they need to eat, and it adjusts as they get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Okay. Well, that's really helpful. That's great. Okay. So my last question is, can you tell me like, what are your top 3 favorite on-the-go snack, like healthy snacks that you like to make for your kids? Like, what are some great ideas for parents where they can, like, if they need to make a healthy snack or add something fun to their kids' lunch, what do you typically recommend?
Yeah, so I really like, there's this company called Kodiak Cakes. They make kind of a high protein, like pancake mix. And I like to use that to make muffins. And so then I know to the kids, it's kind of a fun treat, but it also has some protein in it. I make it with eggs and milk, so that bumps up the protein, so it's very filling. Yeah. And I know it's covering a lot of bases. So that's one of my go-tos, is to make a batch of those, and then they have that as a snack. I also like making granola bars.
Mm.
Granola bars is maybe not the right term, but just making like a bar that you can eat. And sometimes you can do it really simply with like Greek yogurt, maybe some oats,
Okay.
and I like to put in like dried fruit and drizzle it with honey on top. So it still tastes good, but it has very few ingredients and very healthy ingredients. So things like that are nice too, just to have a batch of to take around.
Okay.
And then, my last go-to is really kind of a classic of like a piece of fruit with cheese, like apples and cheese, or cheese and crackers. Like those types of things travel pretty easily, and you can find like pre-cut little cheese squares that you can take with you. And so stuff like that to me is like fairly universally appealing to my kids and travels well and is easy to have on hand.
Okay, that's great. That's so helpful. I feel like I always need inspiration for new snacks, new foods, things to try, especially for on the go. And I know with summer, I feel like so many parents are packing lunches and snacks and, camps, and you're at the park and things. So that's
Exactly.
cool. Well, this has been wonderful chatting with you. I know we could be covering so many more topics around picky eating and food for kids. But we're at our 30-minute mark. So can you tell everybody where they can find you and what your services are and how you can help parents, and just kind of like tell us all about you and where everyone can
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a nutrition provider through Tot Squad, and so you can book appointments with me through them. And when I meet with people, I really like to get a sense for what you're currently doing. And my approach is really to think about small tweaks. I don't ever want to come in and like overhaul someone's diet or what they're doing, because a lot of times you're doing a lot of things right. And it's about finding these little places to make some adjustments that you can easily incorporate into your daily life that will help make you or make your kids a healthier eater. So that's kind of the approach I take. And I really enjoy working with families with kids of any age. And one of the things that I am working out myself now as my kids get older is like how to support kids as they start to get involved in all these different activities. And now you're running around at the end of the day and you have to figure out dinner amidst all this stuff that's going on. So I'm in the trenches with you when it comes to figuring all that out. And I'm happy to help, work together to come up with a plan that's going to work best for your family.
That's awesome. And that's great to know that you work with kids of all ages. It doesn't have to be just like the babies and the toddlers, that you
Right.
work with parents through all of the stages. So that's really helpful. That's awesome. Well, this has been so lovely chatting with you and so helpful. I hope we'll get to talk again. And
Yeah.
any parents out there who are starting the feeding process with a baby or a toddler, you can definitely check out goodbuygear.com, where you can find all the feeding gear you need: high chairs, on-the-go high chairs, all the little, bibs, all the things that you need for feeding on our website. We ship nationwide, so definitely check out goodbuygear.com and stay tuned for more conversations with our lovely Tot Squad providers. So thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, have a lovely day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.